Hey, Mitch.
Hey Ed, what's up?
Hey, guess what? It's that time of the year again.
Oh, Ed, I've told you I don't care. We're not doing Condor Man.
No, no, not Condor Man. It's Halloween. I thought we could watch a scary movie. I thought, have you seen The Exorcist?
No, I've never seen The Exorcist. I thought we were going to do something like Fright Night.
I've never seen Fright Night before. I thought you said you've never seen The Exorcist.
Oh, I haven't. I was just thinking more about Condor Man.
Let's just start the show. Hi, this is Ed Dollister.
And this is Mitch Halleck.
And welcome to another exciting episode of Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure. If it's your first time here, thanks so much for joining us. If you are one of our new subscribers, thank you so much for subscribing. Hey, Mitch, before we start today's topic, how can you find out a little bit more about our previous shows and how to find out when we have a new one coming?
Oh, Ed, that is as easy as being stuck home alone with a homicidal maniac upstairs in your basement with a knife with your name on it. All you have to do is smash that button down below and subscribe to the Mitch and Ed's Excellent Adventure Show, and you'll see all our previous episodes, all 70 of them, actually. There's a lot of them there. And you can get notified by hitting the bell, and you'll know the next time we go on an adventure. And plus, hit the like button, because if you do like what we do, we'll know to keep on making more. So, Ed, it is the time of All Hallows Eve and witches and all that fun stuff. So I know we're going to be talking about some scary movies. What's up on the list in your neck of the woods?
So I thought we'd talk a little bit about The Exorcist, and I know you're going to tackle something a little bit different, Fright Night. Now, you've never seen The Exorcist, correct?
No, I got to tell you, Ed, is a young Catholic boy growing up here in New Haven, Connecticut. It was basically banned by my Catholic church, the St. Brendan School in New Haven, and the priest came out and told us. Mind you, I was a little boy. I think this is 1973 it came out,
It
so I
did,
was like
yes.
in first or second grade. I was like 6 years old. They told us under no circumstances whatsoever were we allowed to see The Exorcist because it was against the church, it was against everything. So much so, Ed, I was so scared of it when the ads for the movie would come on TV, and it would basically be the silhouette of the priest under the streetlight, and they would play that piano music.
Yeah,
I would
Tubular
plug
Bells.
my ear. My sisters and I would cover our ears and close our eyes and hum during the commercial so we wouldn't hear it. That's how scared, that's how terrified we were of The Exorcist, because it was in all the papers how people were going to the theater, were getting violently ill from the images on the screen. People were throwing up in the movie while watching it. They were scared out of their minds. So that's why I have never seen it to this day. Have not sat through The Exorcist, but you have. And tell
I
me about
have. Now I'm just a few years younger than you, but I was like 3. I certainly didn't see it when it came out. I saw it when they did a re-release of it, the version you have never seen. And that was in the I think that was in the 90s that they brought that out. And I've got to say, it's a terrifying movie. Even to today's standards, there are some things that are just flat out creepy in this. It's of course based on the novel by William Peter Blatty. It's based on a it sounds strange, but it is based on a true story. I mean,
it. Yeah.
not the actual demon and everything like that, but about a boy that was possessed in the
Yeah.
1940s. They obviously changed some details and things like that. They got director William Friedkin on board, and of course, William Friedkin is probably best known for a few things, but for The French Connection Part One, it's a really terrifying picture. It's not like the young people today with horror movies and fast editing and everything like that. It's a really slow burn. There's a lot of wonderful performances. Max von Sydow, we've got Jason Miller, playwright, playing Father Callis. You got obviously Linda Blair as Regan, the girl who's possessed by the demon. Ellen Burstyn as her mother. The music, by Mike Oldfield. He only contributed a number of songs to it, but everyone knows those tubular bells. There was a hit album based on that. You've also got the amazing special effects by makeup wizard Dick Smith, who actually hired as his assistant Rick Baker, who you would probably know if you've watched any of our movies. But Dick Smith did the amazing effects for The Godfather. He had to age Max von Sydow because he was only in his 40s. A lot of people didn't realize that was actually makeup. It was that good. I think Dick Smith also did. Do you remember Little Big Man with Dustin Hoffman?
Dustin Hoffman. Yeah,
where he was like that
old,
the old man at the end. Some incredible makeup there.
I think of that when we did the Lone Ranger with Johnny Depp and they aged Tonto. I always think of that movie like, oh, that's how they did that. But yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Absolutely right. So the film was controversial, as you mentioned, for a lot of things. The Catholic Church actually, some of the Catholic Church actually endorsed this film because in the end, I mean, really, God, Catholic Church all wins. They exercise the excise, not exercise. Can you imagine that? Bit of Jane Fonda. They exercise the demon out and they win.
The demon has a name, isn't like begins with a P, isn't it?
Pazula.
Pazula, yeah.
That's right. That sounds like no, it does.
My grandmother used to make that on the weekend.
Something like that.
Yeah, it was white beans and some noodles. Pasta fazola. Yeah.
That's right. It was controversial for a number of scenes. The head turning around that you see, with the amazing effects work by Dick Smith. There's the pea soup. There's a scene, I won't go into the detail, that there was talk of subliminal messaging.
I had always heard that. Is that not true, or is that like a urban myth that they had?
The director William Friedkin said basically, if you can see it, it's not subliminal. So I know that they added for Jason Miller's dream sequences that image of the demon, which is that horrendous half animal, half human.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought in the actual film, when things used to be on film, like every so many frames, he had inserted that. So when people were watching it, they couldn't figure out why they were getting so upset and going home and having nightmares. It's because it was subliminal in there. Are you telling me that's not true?
Well, from what I've read, that they didn't subliminally put any images in there. There was a trailer that did come out that did have flashes like that. And it had to change. So
really?
there's a lot of disturbing imagery in there. There's a lot of iconic imagery. Of course, you think of Regan's room with the padded bed. They actually spent about $200,000 to refrigerate the room so that you could see the breath. Nowadays, it's all done digitally, of course. And William Friedkin had some unorthodox directorial methods. He sort of subjected his actors to a lot of frights and scares, unexpected things. When basically when Regan throws up, she was, they rehearsed it. She was supposed to throw up on the chest of the father. However, they changed it so it would go into his face, so he could elicit a reaction. He would shoot blanks without the knowledge of
off camera,
to scare and get a visceral reaction.
A
lot of injuries during the filming. I know that people have said it's cursed and everything like that, but it's like the Curse of King Tut's tomb, when it's more coincidence than a lot of those things. But Warner Brothers didn't think it was going to be do very well at all. They had trouble casting it originally. They were going to get Marlon Brando as the lead. However, Friedkin said, I don't want to be a Brando pick. It would have been a Marlon Brando film. So that's why he went with Max von Sydow, who happened to look a lot like the actual priest from the actual story. So it didn't have a lot of big names really in it. They opened it. It's a funny on Boxing Day in 1973. Doesn't seem like a Christmas sort of
day
film.
After Christmas, really?
Correct. Yes. So yes. So they opened it and it was a blockbuster. This outgrossed The Godfather. It was up to that stage, it was Warner Brothers' highest grossing movie of all time. It was one of the highest grossing movies in Japan of all things. and it just, in fact, I believe it was the highest grossing film, like Christmas release film, up to, was it
Superman.
Titanic? I think was released around that
No,
time.
for Warner's, I was gonna say probably Superman, right?
Well, then, yeah, of course, that came along 5 years later, but it
Yeah.
was huge, absolutely huge, and I think it was probably because of, that advertising, that, oh my gosh, and you were right, people were getting sick in there, people were
Yeah.
reacting in such a visceral way to it, and when you hear that music, even now, it just creeps you out. You can feel the hairs on the back of your neck rising up. That amazing staircase that you can go still visit. They've called it like the Exorcist steps in, I think it's in Georgetown in Washington,
It
D.C.
is. It's near Washington, D.C. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you can go there. It is a terrifying movie, still by today's standards. And if you haven't seen it, it's probably a good watch for Halloween.
Yeah. Well, if you say so. Now, can I ask about the sequels? The
Well, I
Heretic
didn't want to really talk about. So in 1977 came along Exorcist 2, The Heretic, which
with
starred, it had
Rod
Linda.
Steiger.
No, it had Richard Burton, James Earl Jones, and the Flying Locusts, and also it was
Linda
directed
Blair.
by John Borman, and
Oh, really?
Linda
Borman from
Blair returned.
Excalibur? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And Deliverance. That's a
Louise
good cast.
Fletcher was in it as well, and it had the biggest opening day for a Warner Brothers picture, and
Really?
then it just slid off and slid off, and it's considered a box office bomb. It actually made some money. It made profit, but nowhere near Exorcist
Right, right.
numbers, and it was totally different to the
Yeah, I now that one I do remember a little bit about, but it was more like it was an archaeological dig and
yes, and
they
they were
find
looking at the
like the death.
like ESP and psychology, and it's considered one of the worst films ever made. I wouldn't
Really?
say
Wow.
it's that bad. It's got some interesting visuals and things like that, but not fantastic. Then they
Now,
brought out,
was there a
actually,
third one?
yeah, there was Exorcist 3 that was brought out in 1990, and that was actually directed by William Peter Blatty, who had written the original Exorcist. And he didn't want to call it The Exorcist 3. He wanted to call it Legion. It had the same character that was played by Lee
Oh,
J.
was that with
Yep.
Paul Bettany?
No.
What's the one
No.
where he's a big the big archangel?
So
What's
then
that one?
then they did Paul Schrader. They did Exorcist, um like a new beginning
Yeah.
later on, but that whole film was scrapped, and they basically, with I think it was with Stellan Skarsgård, and then they brought in Rennie Harlan to direct it and redo it. So they released that, and then a year later they released the Paul Schrader version, which was same actor but totally different, and they both didn't really do very
That's
well.
weird. That's I didn't realize there were so many sequels to The
Yeah,
Exorcist.
there is, but really stick with the original. And Exorcist 3 is not too bad. But there's not really, they had to add an exorcism in it. They got Jason Miller to return as Father Karras as a sort of like a flashback, because he obviously,
Uh-huh.
spoiler, dies at
Yeah.
the end of The Exorcist. But yeah,
Oh,
terrifying film. Is it as
yeah. I just
terrifying as,
remember I
yep.
remember a lot of parodies of The Exorcist. There was
Oh,
like I'm gonna say maybe Carol Burnett show. Somebody did a takeoff of it because everybody was doing spoofs of it.
well, I suppose
Um,
the best known would be Repossessed with Leslie Nielsen
yeah, there
and
was that one, and then
Linda Blair.
on Saturday Night Live, they did one with Richard Pryor
Okay.
was the priest,
Yes.
and Lorraine Newman was the Regan girl, and I think Dan Aykroyd was in it, and it was in 1975 or so. And what happened is he's there, and then basically all hell breaks loose, literally, and Richard Pryor just gets on top of her and starts punching her in the face and stuff. But it was funny.
Yeah.
Funny. No, honestly, I would never see it because I'm a big scaredy cat. But no, it's one of those things where it's like
It
You
is a
got the
classic.
devil.
Oh, the other thing I should say that
Yeah.
it was nominated for 10 Academy Awards, and it was
Really?
and it was the first horror film to be nominated for Best Picture.
What one?
In nine
Godfather?
No, that was 72. So in 73, I don't know. I will put up
Oh,
what beat it right
yeah.
now. So what about
Yeah.
Fright Night? I've never
Now,
seen.
Fright Night. Now we're going to go a little different because Fright Night.
Is that
Did
sort
I
of like
write?
a more of a comedy?
No. Well, no. I have the special edition that just came out, and there's with Chris Sarandon. Fright Night came out the same year as Silverado, and all Columbia was putting their money on Silverado. They thought that was going to be the big hit, the Western that had Kevin Costner and
Kevin
Kevin Kline,
Kline? Yeah.
Danny Glover. It's a great movie. Don't get me wrong. I love Silverado. It's one of my favorite Westerns. I remember seeing it the same summer as Mad Max, Beyond Thunderdome, all that came out. But this was a little horror movie written by the guy who wrote a movie called Cloak and Dagger, and his name is
With
Tom
Dabney
Holland.
Coleman.
Yeah, that movie. Yeah, but while he was making that movie, he said, "I want to do a salute to all the cool vampire movies, all like the Universal horror movies." And the director and writer's name is Tom Holland, not to be confused with Spider-Man. Tom Holland.
Mhm.
This is the creator of Fright Night. So he wrote the story about a washed up old type of horror movie actor who now hosts like the local. I don't know if they have them in Australia, but here they'd have like Elvira. Right now they got Svengoolie,
We used to
uh,
see Elvira. Now, is that the Roddy McDowall character?
Roddy McDowall
I
character. Yeah,
remember that. Yes.
his name is Peter Vincent. They wanted to get Vincent Price. The role was written for Vincent Price, and at the time his health wasn't so well because the director went and met with them. And he said, "Oh, I have this great script, and I want you to be in it, and you have to play this very hammy, overacting thespian who's now relegated to late night horror shows on a local TV channel." But what really happens is there's a real life vampire in this kid's neighborhood. And it steals a lot from Rear Window, where if you
Mhm.
remember that movie, Jimmy
Yes.
Stewart is wheelchair bound and he's looking through binoculars and he watches across the way as his neighbor, played by Raymond Burr, murders his wife, and he
Yes.
sees everything. He's watching all this. So in this film, you have Charlie who's watching his new neighbor that just moved into this old spooky abandoned house, and he starts to see things. And in one night, he sees Chris Sarandon, who plays Jerry, the guy next door, and fangs come out of his mouth, and there's this very pretty girl, and he starts to undress her, but then he goes right for the neck, and no one believes him, and he's got this completely dorky friend that they call Evil Ed, and he's like stereotypical, like, yeah, you're such a loser, Charlie Brewster, and all that bit. And Charlie's got a girlfriend, sweet all American girl next door who just wants to be with her boyfriend. But Charlie becomes obsessed with trying to tell people that his next door neighbor is a real life vampire. And Chris Sarandon, who you might know from like Dog Day Afternoon, and
Princess
later on he
Bride.
Princess Bride, exactly. He was a real serious actor, and he didn't want to do the movie. They gave him the script, and he read it, and he goes, "Oh my god, this script is amazing! I got to do this." So they sat down, and the director Tom Holland. This was his first ever directing film. He wrote films, but he never directed one. So you got to have a lot of faith in this fella.
Mhm.
So he sold the picture. He got Chris Sarandon on board, and like I said, they couldn't get Vincent Price, but they got Roddy McDowall, who people remember, of course, from the Planet of the Apes movies, but he was in a lot of movies since he was a little kid. He
Mm.
was in the Poseidon Adventure, a lot of cheesy TV shows like Night Gallery, Fantasy Island. I mean, you knew Roddy McDowall. He was one of those actors
The
that
Love Boat.
the Love Boat. Yeah, he would be that guy.
Yeah.
And basically, when they brought him the script, they said, you have to play this washed up guy. And he didn't have any airs about him. He was like, no, I get it. This is basically me. He knew he wasn't Richard Burton or
Yes.
Sir Laurence Olivier. He knew his like spot in Hollywood was like, a B-roll, B movie actor. So he was fine with it. And he does a fantastic job in this movie. So they convince him to come over to take care of the vampire because he thinks these kids are just making it up, like they've
Mhm.
watched too many horror movies. But no, sure enough, it comes out there. And the effects fella,
Richard Edlund.
he was the special effects makeup fella. So he starts going around and gathering some folks there to do the effects. Now, at this time, you already had like Rick Baker, who won the effects award, Academy Award for American Werewolf in London. You had The Howling, which was another werewolf movie. You had Wolfen. There was a lot of horror movies coming out around this time, but this was practical effects, not like CGI and all that jazz. So this movie is a fantastic movie to watch if you're into makeup, because they would do, like, you know how the heads melt away at Raiders Lost Ark,
Yes.
where they just made like a gelatin and then they take a hair dryer off camera, a heat gun, and they just kind of melt the Nazis and stuff. They use a lot of those effects in the film where they have people's hands melt away and their flesh is melted off of them and all that stuff. A lot of in-camera effects as opposed to CGI. So Fright Night is fantastic because it has a lot of really good old-fashioned gooey effects, if you will, just blood and guts and all that stuff. But it's got a great story about, you know, this nerd who's saving the world from the bad guy. It's a lot like my other favorite movie, The Night Stalker, where you got the same story. You got a down and out reporter, Darren McGavin, who's got to save the world from a vampire in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So this time it's a vampire in your neighborhood. The music is fantastic. It's done by the same composer who did the Terminator. You know that dun 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 dun.
Is that
Dun, 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 dun.
is that Brad Fiedel?
That's exactly correct.
Yep.
Yes. He's the one that came on board. He did the music for this. It's got almost and you're gonna like this. It's almost got like a disco sound to some of the music, because we're talking like the mid 80s. You got Miami Vice. You've got a lot of that, like, you know, MTV type of soundtrack going on there. A lot of synthesized music and such going on. I just can't tell you. And there's a lot of good and evil. The best acting in this movie, and it's a lot like your Exorcist movie, is Roddy McDowall as Peter Vincent. He confronts Chris Sarandon as vampire. And you know, he has his bag of tricks. He has garlic and he has the holy water. And you see Chris Sarandon basically drink the holy water, and like that doesn't do anything. And the part that I like the best is he pulls out a cross and he holds the cross up. This is Roddy McDowall holds the cross up to Chris Sarandon, and Chris Sarandon laughs at it. And he goes, "That's not going to work. You have to have faith for that to work." And there's a great moment of acting where you see Roddy McDowall, who's basically this big cowardly lion type thing, you know, like he's just, you know, he's a wimp. And he takes the cross and he knows he's washed up and he's just like a loser, but he holds the cross back out again. And somehow inside of him, he believes in everything. He believes in the power of God and the cross. And he thinks about it, and then he puts the cross back out again, and he shows it right towards Chris Sarandon. And then you see Chris Sarandon's eyes widen, and he starts to scream in pain because the power of the faith is coming through, and the cross suddenly has, you know, abilities to combat this vampire. And then I always remember that scene in the movie when he just like looks and he does one of those wink and nod and he puts it back up again. And then I mean, it's got, you know, the old Bela Lugosi where he transforms into a bat and they would do it with animation. That happens in the movie too, because Chris Sarandon's vampire turns into like a bat and flies off, and it's great effects. The guys that worked on Ghostbusters, they took a lot of the old leftover Ghostbuster models and makeup effects, and they used up everything. They burned everything up. And he does that transformation into a bat and flies off, but it's done animated. It's a shadow on the wall, so it's like a salute to the old time Universal horror movies. But it's just I don't know how else to tell you. It's a great movie. You sit down, you watch it. It's, you know, it's not as
it sounds a bit more fun than The Exorcist.
It is, and there's a lot of, you know, pop-up scares.
Yep.
You know,
I don't know why I didn't.
Sorry, I was possessed by a dust.
That's all right. I don't know why I didn't see it when it came out. I remember seeing, because I remember Roddy McDowall. Didn't he have like a? Did he have a? Was he wearing like a Sherlock Holmes sort of?
He was. He has like, I call it like a John Pertwee Doctor Who outfit.
Yes,
it's got the little upper, like a cape type of shawl thing that Sherlock Holmes would wear.
I remember seeing, but Was that around the same time as the Lost Boys, or was it Lost
No,
Boys
this came
later?
out in 1985. I think Lost Boys was
That was 87,
87.
wasn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
I
No.
don't know why I didn't see it because I saw Monster Squad, which this sort of
Yeah, I
feels
didn't
a
like
bit
Monster Squad. That was too
okay.
goofy. No, but this is it's done better. Um, the girl that plays Sarah in the movie, she goes on to be on the show Married with Children,
Yeah.
the one with Ed O'Neill.
Yes.
She played the neighbor next door for years.
Okay.
Same actress, yeah.
Oh, I
And
know. I can't think of her name, but I know who you mean. Yes,
yeah,
with
she's in the
with
movie.
Roger from
Yeah,
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 her,
from Love. Yeah, Ted McGinley.
yeah, Ted McGinley.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. That's who it is. And I'm trying to think of some of the things that happen on the set. I mean, there's a lot of, just like your movie had some behind the scenes like curse things. This wasn't curse. I know the kid that plays Charlie breaks his ankle in the movie, so he's the star of the movie, so that kind of shuts production down a little bit. So they had to film around him. Uh they use contacts on people, not like nowadays where it's like soft contacts. This was like really
Oh, the glass one.
glass
Yes.
that was painted. So there's a lot of those shots, but the actors couldn't see. And you have to grind the glass down
Yeah.
to make it smooth, but they didn't do that sometimes. So the actors put them on and it felt like sand in their eyes. They were actually scratching their corneas because they weren't smooth, the
Uh,
contact. So they were really in pain. And they used to make that smoke effect. Unlike you, where they were saying they put the room down really cold, this they would use an acid and a base, and you'd combine the two. It's simple chemistry, and you'd
yep.
get that smoke and bubbling effect. Well, they wanted to do the on-camera death of the vampire all in the frame. So
Yep.
what they did is they put layers upon layers of latex and some thin, material and stuff, and they soaked it in an acid based, and then they just poured the counter agent on top of it. So when it hit in the movie, it just instantaneously dissolves in real time. And it happens. It's great. But it's all over the floor. So the effects guy goes home, he's driving home, he doesn't think twice about it, and his feet start tingling. Well, what would happen is all that stuff got on the bottom of his shoes,
Yeah.
and it was literally eating away at his shoes. So when he got home, the bottom of his feet, it actually ate through his socks and his shoes. It was
Huh.
eating the skin away. So he couldn't walk for a couple weeks because it literally was eating the flesh off there. So that's dedication for you
It
back in the day.
is.
Yeah, and it's just something to see. There's a lot of effects things there. Roddy McDowell, I think this is one of his final. No, he died in 1998, but I think this is his last big screen
Yep.
uh movies. I mean, he was on Tales of the Gold Monkey just before this,
Yes.
and that's about it. And then
Were
there's a
you?
sequel.
Oh,
Wasn't
is
that
there?
good?
I didn't know there was a
Yeah, there's
sequel.
Fright Night 2. And what happens is there's a Fright Night remake with David Tennant. That's kind of based
Oh,
on,
I have.
yes.
Okay, that's
You've seen that.
that's pretty recent, isn't it?
It just came out a couple years ago, like 2012 or so, or maybe later, 2014. He's in Vegas. He's like a rock star type of guy.
I
You
have
just see it?
heard of that, but I missed that. But you know what? You have convinced me to watch Fright Night. I'll see if
Yeah.
it's on streaming services somewhere here in Australia. I don't think I've convinced you to watch The Exorcist. You can't
No, no.
go
I
against
was
all
gonna
your Catholic upbringing.
no, unlike your show, mine had a bunch of comic books and there's merchandise. There's actually been a Fright Night comic book that ran for 30 issues that
Oh,
tells the adventures of Charlie and Roddy McDowell's character as they go hunting ghosts. There's some toys, there's some action figures, there's some props that go for good money.
yeah,
And I was going to tell you, you've watched the Child's Play movies, right?
not really.
Oh, well, Tom Holland, the director and writer of this movie, goes on to create Chucky and Child
Ah,
Play, and then Chris Sarandon's in those movies, and that's a whole other bunch of
yeah,
movie things. They do tours, and Chris Sarandon, not only was he in The Princess Bride and up for an Academy Award for Dog Day in the Afternoon, you know where I'm going with this, Ed.
I
He
do.
lives right down the road in Fairfield, Connecticut, near my house here in Trumbull, and Chris Sarandon is nearby neighbor, so.
And has he and been a guest at Terrificon?
He will soon.
Okay.
I'll invite him there, and then I'll have to get an autograph for you too. But yeah, definitely watch Fright Night. It's a lot of fun, a lot of good old fashioned effects. Not as spooky as yours. It doesn't violate the Catholic Church. There's no obscene things going on with crucifixes, unlike your movie. All right, a little side note.
Okay.
When The Exorcist came out, and I'll take you to this place, right down the road from me in another town called Bridgeport, Connecticut,
Yes.
there was a house on, I think it's 6 something Lindley Street, Linley. It made all the local news, it made the newspapers. You could look it up online. There was some kind of possession going on in that house. The furniture was flying across the room. Police officers, firemen went into the house. Tables flew through the air. Refrigerators flew. The cat that was on the front porch, they said, was trying to talk. It was making the scratch. The house was possessed. So much so that the Ed and Lorraine Warren, who lived up the road from me in Monroe, Connecticut, the Ghostbuster people, went to the house to try to do an exorcism on it. It was insane. It was in all the papers. You can go find it. It happened. It was a possessed house. Coincidentally, it comes out right around when The Exorcist came out. So
Mm-hmm.
to this day, I don't know if that was an elaborate publicity stunt or there really is a possessed house not too far from where I live here. So yeah, I don't mess with the devil, Ed. You got to be careful of that stuff. So
Yeah. Let's
I'm not
let's
going to be
yeah.
watching it.
Let's watch
That,
watch it from the safety of our living rooms. Fright Night, maybe not Exorcist. You can find out though a lot more about some other Halloween inspired movies and TV movies by watching one of our previous Halloween specials, and you can click on it up here and enjoy that. And also, we've got about the Night Stalker as well. We talk about that, which is great Halloween fodder. Mitch, how can you find out a little bit more about our show?
oh, Ed, it is as easy as sacrificing your eternal soul to the Prince of Lies and Satan himself. All you have to do is hit the subscribe button below, and you too will be damned forever to watch Mitch and Ed's excellent adventure. And hit the notification key so you'll know the next time some poor soul gets sent down to the bowels of the earth.
That's right. And watch Condor Man. So that's it. Hope you have a happy Halloween or just enjoy these horror movies when you get a chance. Signing off for this week. This is Ed Dollister.
And this Mitch Trick or Treat Halleck.
We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.